We're back.
Woo!
And the main man is here. Del G in the house. Del, how are you getting on?
Good, mate. Thanks for having me on.
Craig, how are you? That's a wonderful shirt you've got on.
Thanks very much. I'm good, mate. I'm good. I'm glad we could bring the man, the myth, the legend, Del G. Twitter's greatest profile. Twitter's greatest profile? Or just boxing Twitter's greatest profile? It's up there.
No, it's definitely up there. It's definitely up there. I mean, I'm not going to be able to buy my mum a birthday present now because of the money it's cost to get Del up here. But I'm looking forward to it. And I much prefer his shirt to yours, to be honest with you.
I've just noticed one half is black with a white detail and one's white with the black.
Mix it up.
You talk us through
Works
that?
well. I can say that it's better than your shirt. I can agree with Craig and say, it wasn't too bad. And I must say as well, thanks for the limousine up to London as well. That was a nice touch, you know.
First class.
Boxer wouldn't do it, so.
Well, exactly. And the way you've been treated recently is nothing short of despicable, actually, from the boxing community. IFL, we went to Manchester, we were at Canbrook, me and Del G, and he tried to get on IFL.
No, he asked me on. I didn't try to get on, I was asked on.
Yeah, Cougs asked him on. I seen that tweet.
Brad asked him on, didn't he?
Yeah, but like Coogan put out a tweet saying, "Oh, we need to get Del G and Brad in the post-fight interview."
Yep.
So what happened there? Because I couldn't sleep thinking I want to see that interview, and it didn't seem to happen.
It was a fucking shambles.
So I think everybody got the memo apart for the security at Manchester Arena, so they're maybe not up to date with IFL as everybody else.
No.
I was trying to show my tweet. That's, like, instead of a placard or a pass, I was trying to show my tweet and say, this guy wants me to go meet my pal, I should be doing an interview, but didn't seem to work out, so...
It was almost as though the guy had a job to do. And part of that job was not letting random people showing tweets over the security barrier. But you did manage to jump a barrier.
Yes.
And that's where I lost you. I kind of shielded you so you could jump the barrier, and then what happened?
Went a wander through Manchester Arena, met a few people, met my mate Sam Jones.
Yes, shout out Sam Jones.
Met a few other fighters, got pissed, got into the bar and wandered back up.
Meandered back up at his own pace.
Meandered back up in time to see the Can fight, which I can't really remember seeing, so... Or I should say Brook fight. We'll call it the Brook fight.
Yeah, we'll call it the Brook fight. Yeah. That was a cracking weekend. We should touch on the atmosphere at that because we both said it and everybody we were with said it as well. The atmosphere when Kell Brook's walkout music came on, the Kanye West, it was some buzz when it was really tense.
And the piano just...
Oh, so good. I've not felt an atmosphere like that for a long time.
The entrance was brilliant, and then you had like two fighters that everyone was kind of supporting. Like nobody, obviously there were Can fans and Brook fans, but everybody respects what they two have done.
Yeah,
wanted to see them, and it's the first time you've had a fight that big where you've had two British fighters that the whole arena was supporting in a way.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good night.
Good. Craig, who's a better room guest, me or Del G? Don't you dare.
Let's just say Del G has provided a drier experience than you have. We'll leave that there for the viewers to draw their own conclusions. No, both a pleasure. But I should say, and I think I said to you in the car when we were on the way up, walking about like a boxing event with this character is the most bizarre thing ever, because anybody that doesn't know, obviously massive presence on boxing Twitter, basically just for making stuff up.
That's what I was going to say actually. So you've got your list of guests so far, and I was thinking about this earlier. So if you've got a genuine boxing fan that's maybe not sending daft tweets every day, they'll look on Roots of Boxing, they'll be like, oh, famous promoter, up and coming fighter, future guests, no doubt all these champions and all that, and then they'll just see fuck's this, some idiot from Twitter that just makes up nonsense for a laugh.
Talk us through what you actually do on Twitter that's made you this boxing Twitter persona, and then talk us through how that started and why you started doing it? Because Twitter's mad anyway, right?
Right. So it's his fault. It's entirely his fault. So I had boxing fan for forever, really, right? So I've always followed it. Probably used to know more about boxing than I do now. Like, I still follow it, but I used to be able to tell you every champion, everything that's going on. Never really used Twitter, no interest in it. And then Craig asked me to do a few interviews for him, so I went along to a few press conferences. And I think that's when I just realised the absolute circus that boxing is. So I was working in an office in Glasgow. Craig says, can you jump down and do Josh Taylor? He was supposed to be fighting Humberto Soto. So it was a fight that never happened. It was meant to be at the Hydro, one of the McGuigan cards. So I went along and I was like, what do you want me to do? Just like, talk to somebody, interview somebody? He's like, I'll just use your phone and like kind of IFL boxing social style and interview a few people. I was like, okay, do that. Turned up and there was like BBC behind me, STV with a big tripod cameras, and I had like an iPhone 4, not even a good iPhone. I had like a broken screen and all that. And it was, who's the boy that works for Boxing Social? Ryan Elliott.
So Ryan Elliott, yeah.
He was kind of coordinating everything. I just wandered up. I was like, I'm pals with Craig. He said I should come down. He's like, who do you want to speak to? So I just went round the room and I said, McGuigan, Soto, Taylor, Charlie Flynn, anybody that I recognised. And he went, right, okay, I'll sort that. And he was putting me in the front of the queue in front of all these like TV stations and all that. And I'm just standing there talking to him. And I'm like, it was fine. It was like, I probably could have done it better, but I was just turned up my lunch break and asked a few questions. But I'm thinking like, anybody just turned up to these things and talked shit, and like Soto had like a translator and all that, and like chatting about him. So then just off the back of that, and started using Twitter a bit more. I had an account I never really used. Started using Twitter a bit more, talking to him, and then you just see the fucking nonsense that goes on. Like all these fighters that you kind of watch on TV, think you know about, and you see a whole different side of their personality. Yeah. Some of them you end up thinking they're brilliant, really like them, and other ones you think they're a fucking idiot.
It's true, yeah.
You kind of pick your favourites off the back of that, and then just started being a bit myself, like winding people up, like having a laugh and just talking about boxing. And then I think lockdown as well, you're not doing much and everybody's a bit bored and you just get a bit carried away and end up making a few friends, annoying a few people.
It's
having a bit of a laugh.
See, so just before you go on there, by the way, I done something similar with going to press conferences and doing it at like your lunch break, and that's when I first realised that I've got social anxiety, because see when you see those tripods in all these big stations and you're like,
yeah, it's true.
Josh, can I get a word? It's like, it's full on. It's
like imposter syndrome, innit? You're standing there and like there's somebody with a headset and a proper camera, and I think the first one I went along to was when Eubank was fighting Reno Quinlan for an IBO belt on ITV, and I went along. Same again, I think I just started doing stuff for Boxing Social, and I went along and Rob was like, try and get some interviews and whatever else, and I was like standing and I had a decent view and I was like trying to get my wee camera up like that, and then Coogan from IFL just wanders up with his big fucking monster, different parts to his, different compartments on his tripod, and just puts it like right in front of my view, and I'm like, what am I going to say? Do you know what I mean? Nobody knows who the fuck I am. Everybody knows who he is. He's getting millions of views. I'm getting 12. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't really do anything, but you're still there mixing it, and it is really weird. But what you said spot on. Like, boxing's a circus, isn't it? It just lets anybody in. Like, I was talking to David Jamieson about this the other day. Like, it just, people can create their own importance in boxing. You can turn up with a suit and shirt and tie and call yourself a manager, and because you know a fighter and you want to give him a bit of advice and create this persona for yourself. And you mentioned Sam Jones. Nothing against Sam Jones. Like, I used to find him extremely irritating, but he's done it all himself. He's created that character. He's stuck with it. He's persevered, and now he's in a position of actual genuine importance because he's just almost kicked the door in and made himself relevant. It's a mad sport, isn't it?
It's just so accessible. I mean, if we were like working within, I don't know, I know we call it boxing media, but if you think about it, football, like, you're not going to be able to access like players from Celtic, Rangers, the Premier League, but boxing just seems to be completely different, where, you know, and Dell's probably found this as well, like probably people dropping into your DMs off the back of posts, and you're just like, this is mad how I watched this guy in the TV fighting and all of a sudden you're talking back and forward to him in DM. It's great, it's brilliant for people that love boxing, like, but at the same time, there's a good side and a bad side. Like, you know, I'm not saying we're the best media outlet or whatever we are in regards to boxing, but there's some fucking idiots. Ooh. Let's be honest. I mean, and that is an understatement and a half in regards to these things. But if you've got some credibility about you, you're good at interviewing, you're good at writing, you're a good guy, you love your boxing, then you can go as far as you want to.
Yeah.
And Sam Jones is an example of that.
Yeah. But because obviously we know anybody that's on Twitter or knows what Dale's up to, he winds people up, he kind of makes up facts and figures and prods people and kind of makes fun of the sport, I guess, and how ridiculous it is. But when we were growing up, so we grew up and went to the same school, same primary school, same high school, grew up in the same area, so we've known each other for nearly 25 years probably.
About that, eh?
You were always Del G the boxer when we grew up, and David Jamieson touched on it on our podcast. Everybody knew you as you were this excellent amateur boxer. Talk us through that. Like, when did you start boxing? Because people will only know this and they'll probably just think you're a guy that's on Twitter like taking the piss, but you were legit good standard amateur.
So yeah, I won't do the me being a dickhead, because I think Dave covered that. He covered that quite well. It was quite funny to sit and see that. So I won't cover that. If you want to see that, watch his one. But I fought from, I think it was like, from a very young age I was training, and ended up fighting from about age 13, 14, all through my teens, a few wee breaks, and pretty much kind of ever since been involved. So I was kind of sparring with pros from age 14, 15, all these kind of top guys in Scotland. I've always been about boxers. So I guess when I have kind of just started talking to fighters and all that, I kind of speak to them like,
you've got an understanding of what
they... I've known what you live through all my life. And I don't always kind of post it on Twitter, but like I kind of understand what they've had to go through and all that. But yeah, I had a good wee amateur career, very lucky as well. So I won 4 Scottish titles, but I think to this day, and I don't think I'll ever be beaten, it'll be like the easiest route to 4 different national titles, because you'll be able to confirm this, I was quite a big guy when I was like 14, I was like 10.5 stone, 11 stone, and there wasn't many other people about, so it was always like a straight final or the guy that I'd already beat twice pulling out in the final. So sometimes I'd turn up to these tournaments where my mates would have to fight like 5 times and I'd either fight twice or fight once. So quite a nice thing to tick off without having to get too many punches to the face, I think.
Am I right in saying I might be pulling this out my arse, did you beat a British amateur champion in a Scottish tournament or something like that?
Beat him in my first fight, aye. So again, I did just no opponents at all, so I was going through all these tournaments. I went to West of Scotland, and back in the day you had to win that to go to the Scottish.
Right.
Couldn't get an opponent at the Western, turned up at the Scottish, didn't hear about anybody, and then I think this guy had won the 4 Nations, it was called, the British, the year before. He was still up north, and I went in knowing nothing about it. And I remember as well, it was like the most people I ever fought in front of. It was like, you know, the time capsule just down the road. So that was packed out. It was like 14 years old, first ever fight. Folk like smoking, and this makes me sound so old because I was thinking about it this morning. So I knew you would ask about it, but I folk blowing smoke in my face before I got in the ring in front of like 1,000 people, and then went in, hated the first round. I was like, because I'd been in some fights, but I'd never had a boxing match, and it's totally different. And I was like, I fucking hate this. Like, what am I doing here? And then I just kind of got used to it. And then the second round, ready to go again. By the time that was finished, I was buzzing to go for the third. And then they said, right, no, he's not coming out. He's got a cut. So I'm celebrating, and my coach pulled my side. And he's like, that's the British champion you've just beat. So folk would come to the gym and talk about that and that for a while. And I obviously thought it was really hard. And then, I had a good few years. And then was unwell for a while. So I kind of missed a year, come back again. Won another Scottish title because I won my 4th, but by this point I was like, I used to fight with so much energy, had so much fitness. You should probably shout out as well the kind of people I was training with. So I was like training with a guy called Billy Leach that David talked about as well. So I started off with Evan Bride, and he's the one that got me fit. He'd fought everybody in Scotland before.
He was militant fitness, wasn't he?
Like, it's still to this day the fittest guy I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So he would train me really, really hard, and then I was at Blantyre Minors with John McDermott, who'd won like Commonwealth Gold, and at that point you had like Craig Docherty fighting on TV, Craig Dixon, Scott Dixon, so these were all my sparring partners, like Jamie Coyle who fought Ryan Rhodes, the British title, because none of the kids, well, the other teenagers at my gym they were all kind of a lot smaller, so I was sparring with. And then it just meant by the time I was going into these tournaments, I was kind of felt ready to fight anyone. But then after I'd been all well for a while, next year I won a title, but I had no energy. I just hated it. I was like, I used to fight going forward, then I was fighting the back foot. I was struggling to get fit. I was picking up injuries. And then my final year, that was like final year as a junior. So in the next year, you'd be fighting in the senior championships. And me and my coach watched the guy that was fighting the light heavyweight where I was up at the time. And it was Callum Johnson, who used to like blag a free ticket to Scotland because his grandparents were Scottish or something like that, and just come up, knock everybody out. And it was like, me and my coach kind of, without even looking at each other, we just watched him, and he said, yeah, we'll maybe take a year to get ready for the seniors, then we'll get you in. So that was his way of saying, this guy's going to take your head off.
Yeah.
And then just from that time on, I was kind of just half training. I was like always struggling with fitness, getting injured, stopping for a while, come back, maybe have one fight, get injured again, and just kind of do this for a few years. And
is that because life got in the way? Because you were, at that point, you're probably, 17, 18? Or is it just a mixture of the injuries and try to get back to that?
It wasn't this.
I didn't
even start drinking. I pretended I was going to be a boxer so much that I didn't even start drinking until my 20s. It was more the illness I had, so I got quite bad. I had like hepatitis in my liver and all that, so I was like out of the game for a while, and just getting fit again wasn't great. And then I would just try to train at the level I used to train at and just pick up injuries.
Yeah.
But then I think after a while, I just not fighting, I just kind of I fell away from it, because I was thinking about this as well. And then so my fourth title, I won that without having to fight in the final. So it was like I won the semi, and I was meant to fight this guy that I'd beat 2 years ago.
Right.
But after beating him, he'd went on to win everything. So he'd won the British, he'd won all his regional titles and all that. So it was going to be like a kind of rematch in my head. Nobody else cared about it because we were like 17-year-old kids, but in my head, that was all I was thinking about, like rematch with this guy, going to beat him again. And he messaged me, because we had each other on, it's probably like MSN or something like that. He messaged me, he's like, hey, I don't want you to think I'm a shite bag, but I've broke my ankle, or I've hurt my ankle, so I won't be fighting in the final. And I was just like, oh, no worries, mate, unlucky, shite bag. And then, so I got my fourth title that way, and then I got a letter through saying, right, called back up to the Scotland squad, you're going to fight for the British. And I'd never fought in the British final before, so by the time I got no well, I had to pull out the final of that. So I'd beat 2 British champions, but I'd never fought for that title.
Right.
So I was like, right, okay, British, but am I ready? I've not been fit and whatnot. And then I just looked at the date, and it was the same date I was meant to be going to Malia with my mates. And being the consummate athlete that I am, I just said I've chose to do Malia instead of fighting. So I think at that point, you got to kind of look at yourself and go, right, I'm not that serious about wanting to be a boxer anymore. So,
yeah,
fair.
So that was it.
And still,
a good run.
Fastest you had for a while, fastest amateur knockout in Scotland. Still got it
again. If you want to argue with David Jamieson, which I don't think many do, so he was telling me that when I went to his fight the other week. He was saying that he's never seen a faster knockout or heard of a faster knockout since. So, not something that you can look up, but according to him, it was pretty fast. So that was the West of Scotland final, my third time fighting in that. And it was a guy, in fairness to him, he went on to fight pro and all that, but he was like quite inexperienced at the time. I think he maybe had like 1 or 2 fights at most. And my coach seen him warm up, said, right, this guy's actually quite good, but because we could see each other in the pads, and he told me to just warm up orthodox. So I felt dead awkward because I could never switch hit, and I was like quite embarrassed. I was like, these guys are going to be laughing at me. And he's like, just keep doing it, and when you get in the round, switch. So I went out, bell went, I just ran out, switched southpaw, landed a 1-2, and it wasn't like a big shot, but he fell back, and because you're trained to move right instead of right, to your right, against an orthodox, he naturally moved that way and just walked into left hand, and then landed a few more, and the ref started counting me. He got to about 4, just waved it off, and then I was like, so that's what made it quick, do you know what I mean? Because he didn't get to the full 10 count, just waved it off. And again, felt pretty hard that day, felt pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty full of myself, to be honest, but that was my first fight after I get beat. So the English champ, he'd beat me by a point. not bitter about it or anything, but he'd beat me before that. And that was my kind of comeback fight. And again, so I'd take my first loss, and I'm like, right, okay, am I going to bottle it now? But that was a good win.
See the guy that hurt his ankle and the guy that you knocked out in record time. And by the way, if you can't look it up, claim it.
Yeah, it's true.
That's how I do everything. That's how I live my life. Would nowadays, if that had happened, would you flash up the Carl Frampton for both of those guys?
Oh yeah.
That they were quitters, cowards.
Arms crossed, disappointed.
Aye, quit.
Took the knee.
I'm going to go touch on...
Go for it, touch away.
The Josh Taylor fight. And Jack Catterall. Before I want to touch, I want to thank G4 Claims, G4 Podcast for the 2 ringside tickets for us. So that was really generous of them, and we had a great night. The atmosphere that night was phenomenal.
Claim it.
But yeah, I just wanted to touch on the actual fight, Dale. What did you think?
Are we a Scottish boxing podcast? And is it bad if I say that Jack Catterall won the fight? If so, you can edit that out.
We are Scottish and we want your honesty, so...
No, I'll be brutally honest if I can.
It's raw, so just...
Yeah, I'll be raw and I'll be brutally honest here. It was a very interesting fight to watch. That run of shows on Sky, the boxer put on 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Were great. Again, after such a lull with COVID and whatnot, like at the end of last year, brilliant run of fights. That was supposed to be the icing on the cake. £140 title, undisputed, and it just left a bitter taste in everybody's mouth. I watched it back for the first time last week there. I did the usual, if you're a really sad boxing fan, you'll do this, no commentary, scoring it on my phone.
Yeah.
And I think the first time I had a 1 round blinder, but I still, like, there's just no way you can't say Catterall won at least 7 of those rounds. Then you've also got the knockdown. It was just predictable as well. It was a bit, you know what I mean? Like when it happened, when it got to the scores being read out, you kind of knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Just 'cause you've seen it so many times. You follow the pattern, a home fighter with plans already laid out. You're like, here we go.
Yeah.
There's going to be a dodgy decision here. But great fight. And I mean, Taylor willed it all the way. He's never going to give up. We've seen how exceptional he is in the past. I wrote Catterall off. Never in a million years thought he was going to do anywhere near as good. I thought he was worse in every single department.
Yeah.
Fighting like a mirror image of himself is better. And obviously, we were saying before, Taylor's probably weight trained and just maybe he's peaked, or maybe he just didn't, maybe underestimated him. But Catterall won that fight, so that was disappointing. Show was brilliant. Undercard.
It's the thing with these boxer shows, isn't it? Just now, like you said, the three main events on the spin were brilliant, but the undercards are no great, are they? They're no great. You look at the standout for me was that Fraser Clark fight. We never watched it live because we were out getting pissed, but that Fraser Clark stand-in was a guy that had never boxed pro. He'd lost a bare knuckle fight 2 weeks before, and he wanted to go as a fan to that fight and turn up. And he's fighting a guy who's had hundreds of amateur fights, who's got an Olympic medal, and they're turning up to fight. Number one, how is that guy getting a pro license rushed through in that period of time? He might have had one, so I might be speaking out of turn there, but how is that happening? And number two, how is anybody thinking that's a good look? Just delay the fight.
And who benefits from it as well?
And the thing is, they've got so many shows lined up. What difference does it make if he fights 2 weeks later? He's Fraser Clark. It doesn't make a big difference. Like you can't justify stuff like that, and it waters down the quality of the show overall. Thankfully, Canbrook was a massive success, and the atmosphere was unreal, and everybody was raving about it for days and weeks on end afterwards. But the undercards at Boxer for me really need to be cranked up a notch, I think. What's your thoughts?
No, I think that as well. I think the Hydro, when you looked at the undercard, I'll be honest, there wasn't really any fights in that I was going, well, I can't wait to see. Obviously, the Scottish heavyweight title is more of an interesting one, but
that's a really good way of putting it.
For
diplomatic.
For me, it was like, that should maybe be headlining it. The Paisley Lagoon not on the undercard there, an undisputed world title. Thought Paddy Donovan is a really, really talented fighter. It was great to see him as well. But for me, underneath there, you're wanting to see like a really competitive British title fight, or you're Do you know what I mean? Something that you're like, I'm definitely going to go early because I'm not missing that fight.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, I was pretty much in the queue for beers, standing for about 40 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I just want to see like the Josh Taylor fight, if I'm being honest. The actual fight itself, I think the alarm bell started ringing for me when I seen Josh Taylor weighing in. I think he looked like, it reminded me, and I don't, forgive me for people that are not into their UFC, but it reminded me of watching like Conor McGregor try and do featherweight. It was Skeletor, and which is weird for me as well, because when you look at Lee McGregor, he's got the same nutritionist, he's in the same camp as Josh Taylor, and you see the difference of him weighing in for the Cash Farouk fight to future fights, and he's a lot stronger at the weight. But to me, the nutritionist has helped both fighters, but if Josh Taylor must be really, really struggling at the weight, if, for me he looked really ill, and that's obviously why he's stepping up in weight as well. So how much did that affect the fight? Do you know?
I'm probably, if anybody watches this or hears it and they're big Josh Taylor fans, I'll probably be the bad guy. But I said to you in the car on the way here, obviously the weight's an issue. He's always looked as though he's cut a lot of weight. That one maybe was a little bit worse than the previous, but he always does look quite drawn, and like he's really had to try hard to make it.
And he's massive.
He's
really
big at the weight.
His shoulders are big.
Yeah. But
probably
for
the
me,
height of me.
he's no short, not at all.
No.
But for me, I just worry, and I will hang my hat on the fact that I think maybe he's taking slight steps backwards. I don't think, and I don't think that's particularly a Shane McGuigan versus a Ben Davison conversation. It doesn't have to be. I mean, I think everybody's got their opinion on that. You and Ben are obviously very tight now.
Yeah. Anything I've said about Ben in the past, I take it back, because he just proved me wrong too many times.
Aye, and that hair is majestic.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen the same Josh Taylor that I'd seen when we went to see him against Prograis, or when we seen him batter Baranchik. He doesn't seem the same fighter, and I don't know if that's because maybe he's resting on his laurels a wee bit, and he knows he's better. He's better than most of these guys. He's better than all the guys he's boxed. He's unbelievable. But that fight there against Catterall, I've watched it a couple of times, the same as you. I didn't turn the sound off. I'm not that much of a prick, but when I rewatched it, I still couldn't figure out what the game plan was. I still didn't know what they were trying to do. Like, he's got that really wide stance, he's doing that mad, like, leaping forward almost as he's trying to throw shots. He's just walking forward and he's just getting picked off. He's picked off all the time. I didn't really understand what the game plan was, and when it clearly wasn't working after 4 or 5 rounds, they just did the same thing.
He stepped up the intensity, but he didn't do it in different.
Just did the same. And any time I thought he won a round, and I probably had Catterall by 2 or 3 if I was trying to make it as close as I could. Every time Taylor won a round, it was because Catterall maybe just lost the pace a wee bit, and Taylor never. Taylor increased it. It wasn't based on quality of work or shots landed, like clean shots landed. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. And stepping up will obviously help, because he'll be able to fill himself out. He'll be re-energised. He'll be focused on a weight class that's full of top talent and potentially money spinning fights. But I just maybe worry, because what is he's coming up on 31?
Yeah, I think as well we need to remember, the trajectory that his rise was, and the people that he get put in with early on in his career. Like, phenomenal boxer, undisputed champion of the world, you can't take that away from him. I almost feel bad that, like, if the actual scorecards gave Catterall that fight, it might actually been better.
Because 100%.
You couldn't have taken an undisputed champion away from him. Unbelievable. He goes away, he has a think, dusts himself down, decides to step up and wait, and then he can identify those big money fights, maybe have 1, 2, 3 and then chuck it. And he'll probably go down as the best Scottish boxer of all time. I mean, there might be arguments either way, but he's definitely got to be right up there.
Yep.
But for me, when you look at these fighters coming through at Matchroom, like, it's very slow. I mean, he was chucked in with, Postal, he was chucked in with, then
Vasquez, super early.
Exactly. So, I mean, he's had one bad fight, and to me, it looks, as a result of the issues with the weight. Catterall won the fight. Like, everyone knows that. But for me, I actually wish they'd just given it to Catterall, and then he could have just went, I'm going to step up.
I fully agree. And then that reminds me of Pacquiao Bradley.
Yeah.
Which I was at.
Yeah. You went to that, didn't you?
Aye.
Oh, really?
So the first one, like Bradley said years later, I wish they'd just given it to Pacquiao, because he probably eats away at him. His fan base kind of, they're not going to turn their back on him by any means, but there's going to be a question he's going to have to constantly defend, like Taylor's having to do at the moment. If he'd have just taken that loss, like I think the best Taylor beats the best Catterall every day.
Yep.
But that wasn't the best Taylor. Well, like he can get to that at 140 is a different matter, but like if he'd have just, it'd have just been fairer and better for everybody if he'd have taken that loss, moved on. There's no way that would have denied him any opportunities at the welterweight anyway. He's won all 4 belts. He could still get, and he would always be the B-side against Crawford anyway. So he could still get fights against welterweights. Probably beats you guys.
Yeah.
But you made a good point there. For me, it actually diminishes a fighter's fan base.
It does more harm than good, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
They're all having to defend him now, and that's just fighting a losing battle, really.
Yeah, you can't defend that, and it's like that question is always going to be asked by a guy if Josh Taylor walks into a pub or a restaurant or somewhere and Catterall, it's like it's never going to go away, so it doesn't do the fighter any good. Whereas if he turned around and said, I got beat fair and square, I was struggling at the weight but achieved everything I wanted to do that division, I'm going to step up and fight Crawford.
Why do guys, here's a question, why do boxers never just come out and say Josh has got his hand raised, why do the fighters never just come out and go, I didn't deserve to win that tonight?
Just too much ego.
Is it just ego?
If you've had your hand raised, especially when...
But it becomes a bit embarrassing.
Oh, I know.
Like, because I've seen him, like, defend... It's not just him, it's not just Josh Taylor, it's happened plenty of times before, but everybody watching it, it almost just makes you go, come on, man.
But if you think of all the fights they've lost as amateurs years back, that they felt they won, and most times they probably did. Like, so another robbery that never gets talked about because of Taylor fight, John Ryder didn't deserve to win against Jacobs. He was a bit closer, but he didn't deserve to win that.
Yeah.
No one thinks he did. But he's been robbed in the past, so he's probably thinking about that, do you know what, I deserved this win, but that's not the way it should work. So these fighters are probably just like, you know what, I'm going to take that because I've been screwed over in the past.
Obviously we had David Jamieson, the cruiserweight, East Kilbride's cruiserweight destroyer, was on the podcast before his fight recently.
What was it you called him again? East Kilbride's second hardest man?
Yeah.
Aye.
I did have to phone him up and apologise for that, by the way. You can't really land me in that before.
Dale was really conscious about that, actually.
Was he?
We FaceTimed him in the room, didn't we, in Manchester?
Like, you can't be saying I'm harder than him. He's massive. So.
It's becoming like an EK podcast, isn't it? Focused on
it's very East Kilbride dominated.
Well, you're going to get Josh Taylor on as your next guest, though, so...
Oh, he's never coming on now, is he? He's never coming on now. We'll need to get who else East Kilbride boxing?
Josh Sanford.
We get Josh Sanford on.
Second best Josh in Scottish boxing.
We'll get Joe. Aye.
He's good. He's very talented.
Very good. He was in my sister's class at school. Josh
I
Sanford.
love your sister.
Aye.
So does Dale.
That's taking a turn, innit? David Jamieson obviously getting the win on the scorecards.
What a girl.
Fucking retiring. That's too raw.
You never thought this was going to be a serious podcast, did you?
No, I know. I don't know why I've done that.
Sorry.
Getting a win, Big Davey. First belt, first professional belt. Tough fight. Made hard work at times. The big man, I was there ringside. He said that himself as well. But I'll tell you what, he's a fit big guy. David Jamieson does not stop coming forward, throwing heavy body shots. I don't know how that guy stayed standing throughout the 10 rounds. But thoughts on where he goes next?
Well, first of all, I was delighted to see him win it, and he told us in the pod, of course, that he was going to go full time.
Yeah.
If he won that, he's got some sponsors. That's great, and I'm sure he deserved a lovely carbonara probably the evening after or two, and a couple of shandies.
We watched him eat it.
I did. We phoned him during his meal the next night. His wife was just FaceTiming him.
Brilliant. Where he goes next? I mean, I don't think he's ready for your, Chris Billingnsmith, Tommy McCarthy. I think we need to get a couple of fights before, you're talking about that kind of fight in terms of fighting those kind of guys. So I don't know. What do you think, Dale?
Well, he wants to challenge himself.
Yeah.
So that was his fight beforehand, and that's all he spoke about after. Is that he wants to fight these guys. He's sick of the 4-rounders, the 6-rounders, and that's again. I can't stress enough. Any of these pros that have had the good amateur career, that have fought at a good level, when you're fighting these 4 and 6 rounders, getting 40, 36 every week, it's not going to do you any favours at all after a while. It's good at the start, but you need to get rid of them. So he's moved on for that. Like you said, Billingnsmith and McCarthy, they're not going to want to fight him at the moment. He's not bringing it into the table for them either. But Hobson rates him. Like, if you watch his socials, he will be tweeting about David Jamieson quite a lot, which is really good. A lot of people rate him, Kinnick rates him, so like if he just gets another win under his belt, he can start fighting for kind of fringe titles. If a Commonwealth frees up, if something like that frees up, he can start getting into these 12-round fights, and that's what he wants to do. He's fighting pro. He said he's only got a few more years left. He's got a tough life, so he's only only a few years left of life, maybe. You know what I mean? He's like middle age.
He's aging in dog years, man.
Yeah, I think he's like you said, you know, things that Davey's going to do is, you know, he's living the life. You know, he's committed in terms, he's going full time now. He's got the sponsors in place, and even us sitting talking to him, you know, you can feel that appetite for success and to give it everything he's got. So, I mean, that's all you can ask from any boxer, you know. So I wish him all the best. I think that you're totally right. You know, he's not bringing anything to the table with the big guys just now, but, you know, maybe in a couple of fights he will be, because it'll be spoke about more and more. And he even spoke to us about Hobson being such a big fan of him. So just want to see him do well and progress.
I think he's doing things the right way, isn't he? And I would say, try to think how many people boxers I've spoke to and interviewed. Definitely hundreds, definitely more than 200. He's probably in maybe 3 to 5 boxers that I speak to very regularly, and he's just a fucking great guy as well.
He is, and he doesn't need to be.
He's just a great guy, man. Like, he's just sound, funny, takes it serious, knows his stuff. He's just spot on, man. He's always checking in and speaking to us and backs the podcast. He got interviewed on Fight Zone, and the first thing he done was back the podcast and mentioned it in his interview. Like, he's just a stand-up guy, man. So hopefully he goes on and he'll have exciting fights, because that's his style, and he doesn't mess about. But hopefully he gets out of the career what he wants to get out of it, which is just to give it a real go and make the most of his time in the sport.
Absolutely. Another friend of yours, Hannah Rankin, is having a press conference on Tuesday. Trying my very best to get to that.
This will be out after Tuesday, so we could probably talk about what's happening.
Yeah, well, do you want to do it? Or
aye, so Hannah, hopefully it'll be out after Tuesday. Hannah's bringing the belts home, WBA and IBO world title defence, which will be in the Hydro.
Yeah.
In the Hydro.
There we go.
Obviously not a full capacity Hydro. We're not talking 16,000, 18,000. I think they're aiming for 5,000 or 6,000. And this is probably something I wanted to talk about. It's a risky game. That's a risky game for me.
What, having it in the Hydro, or yeah?
Do you think, and that's no knock on anybody that's on the card, my view is that they're going to fill the undercard with, and Hannah's brilliant. Hannah's story is tremendous, the way she's really just started from nothing, built herself up, wanted to see what she could do. She's fought Clarissa Shields, she's won world titles, she's travelled the world and sparred and fought the best. Do you think they get 5,000 or 6,000 in a Hydro for a Hannah Rankin fight? And that's not, I love Hannah Rankin and I love Noel, but for me the ticket sales are going to come from the guys that are on the undercard, and you've been to enough fights to know those guys come for a night out. 200 people will come and watch Regan Glacken, 150 will fuck off to the pub after he fights. Do you keep a consistent audience there? Do you have numbers there for the fight?
I think women's boxing's certainly on the rise. I think, you know, from Hannah's perspective, I can understand why, if the opportunity of fighting, bringing the titles home to the Hydro is probably a dream of hers.
Yep.
I think that you've got a valid point in terms of, we've all been to shows where, you know, the tickets are sold to the fighters. I remember like the MTK nights they used to have at the Emirates, and the media, you could sit like kind of at one side of the ring, and you would just all of a sudden have like 3 rows of people, and then they would just go away, and then you wouldn't see, the seats would be empty. Doesn't really look good on the TV cameras either.
Have we seen that recently? Has there been any shows this weekend where we've not seen it looking too busy? No, never mind.
Dubai, you want to talk about Dubai? Every one of the shows.
I don't want to cut in a bit about Hannah Rankin, but you're right. Like, I don't think it's going to be very busy. But the Hydro can look good, even if there's a couple of roads filled. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's to do with the. You guys both spoke about the undercards as well. Like, if there's competitive fights on the undercard, we're not asking for, you know, other world title fights. If there's competitive fights on the undercard, then naturally that will bring more people into the Hydro as well, which is what you want. But yeah, I don't want to take it away from Hannah.
No.
Hannah's got, you know, a kind of massive support, and quite rightly so. But I suppose it's more about the other fighters that are on the card. Like, how many tickets are going to be sold, who's going to be on the undercard. So it's a difficult one. I
think it's absolutely not to take it away from Hannah, because I think it's amazing. It's brilliant. She's coming back. I'll be there 100%. And I'll try and shift some tickets to people I know, because I think it'll be a good night. I just think for a company like Hobson and Fight Zone, who are doing great stuff and they're full of ambition, the Hydro is costly. It's like a big... And I think it was not originally supposed to be Braehead Arena. They were going to try and bring it back to Braehead, which would have been still a step up from your Scottish events. I don't know. I just hope it does well. I hope it does well.
I don't know.
It's not her that loses money anyway.
No, exactly. It's great. It's great for her.
I don't know what's changed from why it's not... Because I think Braehead would have been the perfect venue. I think it's a great venue for boxing. So what's changed to take it to that? They must feel that there is a demand to do that. And as you rightly said, it's not going to come out of Hannah's purse.
Aye.
Maybe they're going to put Dave Jamieson on the undercard.
Yes.
I think it's sell 10,000.
Yeah, open up the extra floors. Right. Davy Jamieson's coming to town.
He's going to fight Ian Martell, is that what you're saying? This is an exclusive.
Strong rumour.
Apparently Martell has a...
Chat it.
Aye, Carol Frampton. Carol Frampton. Apparently Martell's looking at an English title against Luke Watkins.
Yeah.
Which is a decent fight, actually, to be fair. So yeah, brilliant, great news for Hannah. And we'll be there.
Dean Sutherland as well, just touch on. So Dean's opponent, I think, withdrew. And yeah, he was having to fight Corey McCulloch, who I think he's...
It's a sparring partner, isn't he?
A sparring partner, a bit of an odd one, and I think Dean started too well. At the beginning, did you see the fight?
I didn't see the fight. I've seen a few wee clips that they'd posted on social media. I seen Dean's face afterwards, and it looks like he took a couple of shots as well. He's got a big black eye and quite bruised. I seen the shot he put McCulloch down with. That was a cracker. Yeah,
I think, from what I've heard as well, I didn't see the fight, but I was told that it was kind of maybe his most disappointing performance. But I think that's probably going to happen if it is a sparring partner. I don't know what you think, Dale. Like, if you're fighting a sparring partner and probably somebody you're quite friendly with, that must be quite strange.
Aye, and you know them inside out as well. You know all the mistakes they make, everything they do together. It's not a case of, I don't want to hurt them, because it's a fight at the end of the day. You wouldn't take pity on somebody or go easy on somebody, but at the same time, you've just worked together so many times and it's just nullifies it. I'd be interested to see if there's ever been a fight with two former sparring partners, like regular sparring partners, that's turned out really good. They probably just know enough about each other to...
Same question.
I think, like, just before moving on, I feel now is the time Dean needs a big fight. I think he's ready. I've seen enough from Dean. We were at the Hamilton Academicals night when he fought. You've seen Nathaniel had an opportunity to fight for the Commonwealth and he got that. For me, that's kind of two fighters that I look forward to seeing in the ring. But now is the time that Dean needs, someone that's coming in there to try and take his head off for a title. That's what I want to see. I think he's ready, and he's very capable. And it's probably that fight there with Corey's probably not kind of shared in a good light.
And that's what he wants. I'd obviously done a feature with him just before the fight, and cracking guy as well, by the way. Really dedicated, really passionate about what he wants to do, and passionate about doing stuff in the community up in Aberdeen as well to kind of build their boxing scene, I guess, because it's maybe kind of fizzled out over the last few years, other than Lee McAllister's outrageous victory over Danny Williams.
I was just about to bring that up.
But
see, I know you done. I don't know if this came up in conversation when you were speaking to Dean, but Dean made a decision to stay up in Aberdeen training. He was going down to Domingo. I think he was travelling about a few gyms. He was committed to making that move, going down south. Where's he kind of head up with that now?
Just said the buds are a lot better up there. He just said, and he's actually got a bud, and she's a lovely looking lady. So well done. Please, nobody mention my sister again. No, I didn't. We didn't speak about it. I think he loves being up there and representing what it's like up there, and he's very close to the guys that work with his gym as well. So I don't really know, to be honest, what the outcome was of those sessions that he spent in the gyms down south. But I like him. I think he's talented, and he achieved a lot in kickboxing. There's 110 world titles in kickboxing, so I don't really know what that means, but he won world championships throughout juniors, cadet level, senior level. Very accomplished. So it'll be interesting to see what he does, but he is hungry for that fight, for the big fights where it's 50-50. And I think you'll be able to speak on this as well. Like, surely that's when you start to look good, because you're fighting a guy that's not just shelled up in the corner and wanting to go 40-36 over 4 rounds. Like, you're fighting a guy that's going to expose himself and he's going to try things and he's going to. That's when you can really start to impose yourself and step it up a level.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've never fought anybody in a 4-round pro fight, but yeah, I do agree. That's what happened. And I should mention as well, my close personal friend Brad Ray, who I've not talked about at all yet, because we were talking about the boxing undercards earlier, I was dying to get it in, but I wanted to drink my beer instead.
The Sting.
That's what he said as well. He's talked about his mates calling him Mr. 40-36 because he couldn't stop anybody when he's fighting these journeymen that are just there to kind of absorb shots and the gloves and nod out and back. But now that he's stepped up, he's absolutely pinging everybody. So, like the likes of Dean Sutherland and anybody that's fighting, see if you get to like 10 fights and you're fighting the same journeyman. Some of these people are fighting the same guy 3 times. Like, just step up or take the knee.
Nathaniel Collins is the same. He was fighting journeyman after journeyman, and then after one of his fights, he done an interview and he's like, "I'm just sick of fighting these guys." And then what does he do? Steps up, wins a Commonwealth belt. For me, Dean is going to have a successful career. I think he's very capable of capturing a title at that level. And you quite rightly said, once these guys open up, you'll see the best of Dean. But I think Dean's got it. But I just don't want him to see him in any more of these type of fights because it's not good for him.
Yeah. I think the difficulty is when you're a big sell locally. Yeah. And I'm not saying promoters deliberately would do this, but it doesn't really matter to them who you're fighting because you'll still shift 400 tickets,
and
right?
Maybe if they're not sure you're going to win against British champion, they don't want you to take the
exactly.
L, so
exactly, and then you're less of an appeal.
Wood Conlon, before we.
Let's not spend too much time on it because we're on a strict 1 hour time limit.
Okay.
Otherwise, Del G walks.
Yeah, I don't do more than an hour for a podcast.
He doesn't listen or watch or pay any attention to podcasts that run over an hour.
Okay. Del, Wood Conlon, I'll let you take it away.
Wow.
That would be a good clip, won't it? But I had Conlon points. I'd been tweeting Conlon before, back and forth. We were talking about how we were going to, as a team, beat this Wood guy, who I thought was going to be outmatched. End of the first round, sitting there smug. Watched it with my fiance. She's out in her boxing now as well. Watched it, sitting chatting away. I was like, "Oh, I've got this bet. He's done this. He's done that." 12 rounds. She said it's the most shocked she's ever seen me. My jaw was on the floor.
Yeah, I couldn't.
Amazing. And fair play to him because he willed it the whole way. He just didn't give up, and he done what nobody thought he could do, and it was fantastic. So he's won me over.
What a fight. And by the way, I know we've not got much time, but I just want to tell you the type of guy that Lee Wood is, right?
Tell me.
So he put it, I like collecting like boxing memorabilia, signed stuff, right? And he put out a post saying, signed all these pictures, I've chucked them into this like Barbers in Nottingham or something. And I says, well, I don't live in Nottingham. And he says, what's your address? And I'll send you one. Who does that?
Superb.
Who does that?
Everybody says he's brilliant. And did he not quote tweet one of your funny tweets at Michael Conlon?
Did he?
To be honest, yeah, I deserved that as well. And I think all he said was he pulled me up about thinking that Can Zoo, or Zoo Can, as he's known, was going to knock him out. And I did think he was going to knock him out because I didn't think Lee Wood was any good, but he's proved me wrong. So you can take that, as well as his world title.
Top man, top fighter, and he batters Josh Warrington.
Ooh. Yeah.
I think Warrington
stops him.
Warrington's at the back end of a very good career. Speaking of tweets, let's dig into the big man's tweets. Okay. So, bit of background. All the tweets that we're going to reference, well, you'll probably need to remember them as much as we will, but the big one, the showstopper, the one that grasped the world by the balls, if the world identifies that way, Tommy Fury, Jake Paul.
See, I didn't even know what one you were going to choose there, but yeah.
That says a lot about the catalogue. Talk to us about Tommy Fury, Jake Paul, why you tweeted it, what you thought was going to happen, and then the fucking madness that ensued afterwards. So
now obviously officially a matchmaker in boxing because that fight that never took place was going to me. So I think it was a chat I had with it was actually an MTK fighter or something, I can't remember, some thread. I was like, why do people care about how many people watches a fight? Like, we just talked about Wood Conlon. See if somebody pulled me aside and said, oh, only 500 people watched that fight, I wouldn't care. I enjoyed the fight, do you know what I mean? So lots of people get really hung up about if their favourite promoters had X views, and then you get these idiots in boxing with their blue ticks, their one represents maybe ESPN, one represents Showtime, and they'll just tell complete lies, like conflicting information. There's never any truth in it. So I was like, right, for a laugh, I'm going to make up some numbers. And I didn't even know who was... I knew there was a bunch of cards on that weekend, but I forgot Tommy Fury was on an undercard. So I think at one point I was writing this up. I was there's an IFL show like Kazakhstan. I'm going to just blow that out of the water, say there's been loads. And then I was like, oh wait, Tommy Fury's been on, he'd just been on Love Island. I was like, right, I'm going to crank this up. So I sent it, made out that he'd had X amount of views. It was like
1.7 million or something.
That was it. And it didn't even like mathematically make sense based on like the overall views I said it had. So it would have, but anyway, that aside, sent it out. Few people reacting, I'm winding them up, go to bed, think nothing of it, wake up the next day, and just my phone's blown up. And Tyson Fury, somebody had made an image of it, so they'd put Fury with his massive arms flexing his muscles next to these viewing figures, and Tyson Fury's tagged Canelo, Jake Paul, everybody in boxing. So I'd been vaguely aware of Jake Paul at this point. I'd heard of Logan Paul because he fought KSI, didn't really know, I knew Jake Paul was his brother. So he tags Jake Paul. Jake Paul, who's like the king of American social media, really.
Yeah.
For some reason, I don't know why. He's done some kind of Instagram with that picture, slagging Tommy Fury, saying he didn't even know he existed, saying he didn't know Tyson Fury had a younger brother. They're going back and forward. Tommy Fury starts putting on a fake American accent. He's putting on a fake English accent. It's tragic, and I'm sitting there going, is this real? Like, do you know what I mean? And everybody in the world's telling Tyson Fury that it's just nonsense, but he just ignores it at this point, and it's blown up. So they're all tweeting back and forward. 9 months later, a fight gets made. Before that, then there was the Paul fight in America where Fury fought in the undercard.
Yes, yeah.
So at this point, I'd started getting into instead of the viewing figures, I'd started posting the fake purses, because that's quite good as well, because people genuinely care.
They get so invested, don't they?
Like, you're never going to get the money that fighter's got, so I don't know why you care, but they get really, really emotionally invested in how much money they've made. So then I'd done the Parker Chisora undercard.
Yeah.
I maybe went a bit heavy on young Campbell Hatton.
What'd you say, you got a $250,000 for a 4-rounder or something?
Yeah. Again, just because I knew people would bite and I knew people would get really upset about that, as if it makes a difference, as if like they took the money out of their purse and put it into Ricky Hatton's son. And it's not just fans, it's the fighters as well. Everybody, like fighters, promoters, media, especially media, they all dig in, get really upset about it, argue about it back and forth. Then, because of that, the Jake Paul fight with the undercard, this was my finest move when I changed the date format around, because I knew the Americans were going to get really upset about this one. So Jake Paul gave away, what was it, $1 million to his undercard. Yeah. And then you've got everybody in the world, like every proper media at this point, not just boxing media, like translated into different languages and all that, talking about how generous Jake Paul was, how he gave Amanda Serrano $500,000. Yeah. You get some nutter on Instagram, like is that Sekback or something like that?
Oh, Ellie Sekback, yeah.
So he
did a video about it, that you podcast or something?
He'd done a full video, like detailing it, saying he'd spoke to every fighter and what their reaction was to getting all this money. So he's like, Amanda Serrano's going to build a house in Puerto Rico with this $500,000.
He like just totally took the lie and ran with it, didn't he?
Yeah. He's like, Daniel Dubois, so much honour. He didn't take it because he's friends with Tommy Fury.
That was genius as well. What you put, Daniel Dubois refused the Jake Paul bonus because he's a stablemate of Tommy Fury's. Fucking brilliant, man.
So they're all running with it, and at this point I'm like, right, okay, you can just talk nonsense in boxing. And it's like all these media guys, they just take it face value, start sharing it on their own, and you're like, imagine you come in as a boxing fan and you want to get to know, I don't know why you should care about viewing figures or money anyway, but like, you're seeing this information coming from all angles. Like, person X will say something, person Y will say something, they just totally contradict each other, and like, that's just the shambles that boxing is. Yeah, and then, to your point earlier as well, like, this was tennis, this was football, and I wrote that, everyone would just be like, what an idiot, ignored. But in boxing, it just seems to have legs, and people
catches fire all the time, doesn't it? And then the other one that you do is posting the speech, the Shannon Courtney speech after she lost that fight. You just post it for everybody, that like every significant fighter that's lost a fight. official statement coming soon. And it's the same fucking thing. And everyone's like, how can he say this loss won't define him? And they just react like crazy, man.
I would say to people that believe that, they just need to be better, not bitter, don't they?
Yeah. What's been your highlight, like, personally, from all the amazing work that you've done on Twitter?
The Jake Paul one was very good because it just went mental. It went nuclear. And that was funny. Like, he was doing TV interviews and all that, saying, some guy posted it. I didn't read the numbers, but I agreed to give the money away beforehand, and I'm just sitting in my house again. My missus, she's always just like, why are you tweeting that? Like, what are you doing? And I'm just sitting like, I've not, especially during lockdown, that not much has happened. I've not laughed so much. I'm just sitting there like,
so
just
funny, man.
Yeah. What have you had, like, any famous people drop into your DMs about stuff?
Aye. Mine's a bombshell, man. Like, if I opened up the DMs, that's what I could do in a future podcast.
Open up the DMs.
Proper money, we'll just open up the DMs.
So what's been your favourite back and forward?
Was any of them angry, or do most of them get it?
So anyone that will chat to me will get it, but I do find, what I found really funny is there's a certain like generational gap. So we were talking about this before. So you've got these fighters that are coming through, right? They're brilliant fighters. They can batter anybody off the street. They're going to do really well. Like Brad Ray, we even spoke about like Ellie Scottney, all these like young upcoming fighters that get social media, that can have a laugh. Like there's so many. I look at these like Olympians that came through, and some of them are like following me on Twitter and all that. I'm like, just like, these guys are funny. These guys get it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and because you'll get people online you'll get trolls that are fucking nasty, right? Like they just dive to the bottom, and I tend to think I don't do that. I wind people up, but I don't kind of do that.
Yeah.
And then, so I think they get that and they're a laugh. But then it's the people that never grew up with social media. I think if you're a retired fighter in your 30s or 40s, you maybe had a few beers, they don't like it when if I say anything that's not true, they get fucking angry. Nobody's ever slipped in my DMs with that, but they've sent me a few tweets and I'm just like, don't even respond. I'm just like, okay, you're upset, I'll give you time to calm down. No, it's been a good laugh.
But it's so bizarre, and like we touched on at the start of the podcast, we went to Manchester for Cambrook, and we were just walking about, like we walked about the arena, and people are like pulling him like, oh my god, it's Del G, and he had board officials coming up with like their lanyards on for the British Boxing Board asking for selfies. That's Del G, we found out where he's sitting and all that, can you take a picture with my mate, and blah blah blah. And poor him, he's like that to everybody. He actually interviews fighters and writes for Boxing News and that, and they're like, don't give a fuck. Del G, can you take the picture, mate? I'm like, fucking no problem. It's bizarre. And we went to Brad Ray's after party. Thanks for the invite.
So you and Ian John Lewis, was it?
Big IGL was there. Slapped the head off him. He was there, good boy. But we went there and he was like a superstar again. All Brad Ray's pals, like, oh, it's Del G and blah blah blah. It's a weird place.
To be honest, that used to happen before I ever wrote any Twitter anyway. That's just
was Craig just in the corner like, I write for Boxing News. It's in my 4-page spread this week.
He had that with him. Yeah, he had this.
Did he have like a leather suitcase just with that magazine?
He's got a 6-piece in it, 6-page piece in it.
6-page,
but nobody really cares.
Cash for it.
6-page, cash for it. It's a weird place to be, man. But on that subject,
I would have loved to have been there, but I didn't seem to receive an invite. So
did we not try and get him out? And he was going home the same day.
Aye.
No.
Because you were at a Man City game, we asked you to come out.
Hold up. You know, when the plans were put together,
I want to hear this.
You know, just because of one accident I had in a hotel room one night, it's held against me. I think it's a disgrace.
That trip to London in that hotel room has been redubbed Wet and Wild, and it's on sale. It's on sale on the top shelf of most old convenience stores. What a play we game with Del, because obviously we went to school together, and I managed to get my mum to dig out. You remember in school? Did you ever have this where you had everybody in the class had to draw a wee picture of themselves, and it went on like a tea towel that your mum was going to keep forever and cherish? Mine doesn't. There's probably fucking shite all over it, but she managed to dig this out. So there was 3 Dells on this, right? Derek
in the same year.
In our we actually don't know who the other 2 are, do we?
I know who the other 2 are.
Oh, do you?
Right, okay.
Right, okay.
So it was a mix.
Okay. Yeah. So what I want Del to do, I'm going to flash them up on the screen. We'll get Greg to flash them up. Are you Del A, which is this one here? Wow.
Right.
You actually scary hands there.
I hope not. Right.
Hopefully not.
You're going to need to let me see them as well. So,
Del B. Don't know what's going on. You look like you're constructed of sausages there. I don't know what's happening.
Like boxing gloves in a way as well, though. But again,
could be.
Well, that could be.
I'm hoping I'm C.
or are you Del C, which is kind of Stretch Armstrong a wee bit?
I think that's me. I'm pretty sure that's me. If you look there, you've got the southpaw left hand reaching out. You get the
I like that.
Yeah,
and you've not sort of over detailed your hair,
exactly,
which is good. You almost knew.
I think I knew at that point, age 7, that didn't have long left.
Superb.
So, I'm going to go for Del C, and you can
Del
let me know
C.
later.
We will find out who is the
Do you know?
the real Del G. Actually, no, I don't know.
No.
I don't know.
Ask my mum.
Can I I want a prediction from you, something you're going to do in the future or over the coming weeks that's going to come true.
A Twitter thing?
Yes.
Or just
Twitter.
right.
Can I just say we've just went over an hour? If he storms out,
we need cuts.
We need to get one prediction and we can finish
we can
it.
go over an hour. We just need to edit it down so that the viewer.
Yeah, we'll edit all Craig's stuff out.
cut the bit about my sister out, and we'll do the rest.
As much as people want selfies with me at a boxing match, they don't want to watch me for an hour. So if we can get 59, then I'm happy.
Yeah.
And I think that in the next few weeks, I am going to recirculate the hashtag official pound for pound list. There's going to be some surprises in it, and people are going to get upset.
Okay.
They always
And
get
when
upset.
they do, you can even quote tweet with this video, just me saying people are going to get upset.
They always get upset.
And again, why would you care? It's a mythical list. It doesn't matter. But,
bizarre, man.
Yeah, I'm quite enjoying that pound for pound one, and you get a lot of interaction.
Who did you have on the last pound for pound? You sent me the link earlier on. So we had, this is just the British pound for pound.
Yeah, that's quite good.
Tyson Fury, John Ryder,
Why are you laughing? He's somebody too. He's just beat Jacobs, mate.
Sonny Edwards, Callum Smith, Anthony Joshua, Billy Joe Saunders, Eubank, Josh Taylor, Kilbrook, Jack Catterall. Brilliant.
Good list.
And how many? 1,566 likes and 96 quote tweets.
And I bet those 96 quote tweets are very angry people.
Yeah, and the first comment that I can see is from our pal we met in Manchester, Gobshite himself. Good bloke.
Yeah, he deserves a shout out on
Good
this.
bloke.
Yeah.
And all the rest of the mob that we ended up going for beers with as well. I think that's us. Is that us?
Yeah, I think we need to do a part 2 at some point.
Anything else you wanted to ask the great man?
No, that's
You can
me.
ask
Just
me
want
next
to
time,
thank
but
you.
I've enjoyed this. Yeah, so if I'm allowed back for part 2,
Yeah,
do it again.
We'll do a part 2. We'll get into the DMs.
Oh, that's a dark
We'll
place.
bring them up.
We're going to bring your DMs up?
No.
Fuck me.